future of Earth, 4086 CE, Nathaniel found himself face to face with an unexpected figure, Ravona. But this was not the Ravona he knew. As he gazed at her, he couldn't help but ask, "Ravona?" Her response was cryptic. How a traveler knows the name of mine is a mystery for time's sweet keeping. Nathaniel, ever the man of science, could only reply, "It's complicated and impossible." The timeline, it seemed, had once again entangled him in its mysteries. But Ravona, unfazed, spoke of their immediate danger. "Then a wait for answers will only see us fall prey to the arbalest's reavings, summoned by your skyfall." Her words were heavy with the weight of survival. Nathaniel, ever the pragmatist, demanded, "Tell me you have a safe house." Ravana's confusion was evident. "A what?" "A safe. Somewhere safe," Nathaniel clarified, his voice sharp with urgency. But Ravana's world was one of despair. The sky burns with cancer's glow. The air scalds. The soil rots from beneath. And the traveler seeks safety wearing little more than bathing rags. "You'll kill nothing with those soft hands of yours." Nathaniel, refusing to be deterred, shot back with action. His gun fired twice, the blasts echoing in the desolate wasteland. Boom, boom. He then smirked and said, "I don't need my hands to kill, Ravona. Now, let's find me some new clothes." In that moment, Nathaniel's resolve was clear. No matter the odds, no matter the cost, he was ready to survive this broken future. And for Ravona, this time, his journey would be about more than just conquest. It would be about survival. In this desolate future, Nathaniel found himself in a barbaric land, a savage wasteland where the remnants of a once great world were now reduced to chaos. The past was long gone, and this was a place where time itself seemed to have decayed into madness. Yet, rather than despair, Nathaniel felt a strange thrill. It was a land of war and violence, one that mirrored the language he had always spoken. It was the very chaos he had sought to conquer, and in some twisted way, it felt like home. At first, Nathaniel had believed she was nothing more than a mirage, a trick of his own mind, perhaps induced by the tachyon poisoning that had altered his perception. But she was real. It was Ravona. 6,000 years since he had lost her. There she stood, an echo from the past in this broken future. And in that moment, Nathaniel stopped questioning how it was possible. The past, the future, the paradox of time, they no longer mattered. What mattered was the now. He had found her, again. And with that realization, Nathaniel began to build the life of adventure he had always dreamed of. In a world where everything had crumbled, he would rise. For here, at the end of the world, Nathaniel Richards saw an opportunity to shape his destiny, and this time, nothing would stand in his way. Under the blood-red skies of a dying world, Nathaniel and Ravona prepared for battle. The night before they laid siege to the Arbalest's war camp, they sat together, feasting on the meat of post-nuclear megabeasts. Amidst the carnage and decay of the wasteland, Ravona spoke of her past, the stories of her people, and the world that came before. She spoke of fools who had wielded miracles, their deeds now forgotten by time, and of a future doomed by the inescapable march of decay. But when Nathaniel asked her about her childhood, about the memories she had before their fateful meeting, Ravona's answer was a haunting one. "I remember a crater," she said. "No parents lived who could birth Ravona. The sky threw me down, and the fearful ground would not consume something as sharp as me." Her words were not of warmth or nostalgia, but of defiance, of a life forged in the fire of survival. Ravona was a child of the Earth's chaos, a force that refused to be swallowed by the inevitable darkness of the world. In that moment, Ravona's view of the world became clear. This world is a shadow. None stand that cannot cast their own. Only conquest. For Ravona, survival was not enough. It was conquest that defined her existence, a path shaped by the harsh realities of a world on the brink of collapse. And as they prepared for the war to come, Nathaniel understood that her spirit, unyielding, fierce, and determined, was a reflection of the world they now lived in, a world that demanded nothing less than the total mastery of time and fate. After a brutal battle, Nathaniel and RAVONA stood amidst the carnage, their enemies slain around them. Nathaniel, still caught in the rush of adrenaline, looked at RAVONA in awe and whispered, "Wow." RAVONA, ever the realist, noted his reaction. "Your face, amazed. Your heart beats loudly. This butchery causes you to feel this way." Nathaniel quickly corrected her. No, not the killing. You're the wow. I loved you at the dawn of civilization. I love you at the end." But RAVONA, unfazed by the sentiment, spoke with the wisdom of one who had seen the rise and fall of many worlds. "Nathaniel, you come from a past sky, from a time when this world was green, soft, and alive. And of all the faces, the first you saw was mine. You think that is an ending, but it is only for a moment," she continued, her words cutting through the romance of the moment. "In this moment, we have killed the arbalest, the tyrant beast, but another shall rise. And he too, in turn, will be killed. We may be killed. If there is to be any worth in this world, to live in this moment will never be enough." Nathaniel, still desperate for meaning in a world full of violence, tried to make her see his vision. "RAVONA, please understand me. Everyone else alive, they are footnotes. We can be all that matters. No more grieving, no more pain, none of it. We needn't toil toward an impossible end. We can leave all of this behind. We can live gloriously." But RAVONA's gaze was sharp, her understanding of the world's unforgiving cycle of destruction and rebirth far deeper than Nathaniel's fleeting hope. For RAVONA, survival was not about avoiding the inevitable, but about embracing the reality of their world. The fight never ended, and peace was but a brief illusion. As Nathaniel grasped RAVONA's hand, the air was thick with tension. But in an instant, everything changed. A deafening crack echoed as RAVONA suddenly attacked, sending Nathaniel crashing to the ground. "RAVONA, wait, what are you?" Nathaniel shouted, his voice filled with confusion and disbelief. RAVONA, fierce and resolute, looked down at him, her eyes hard with a cold truth. "You understand our technology in ways we can't imagine," she said, her voice sharp, cutting through his words. "Your view of history's shadow stretches beyond horizons. And all that power you used to claim me as you claimed this woman you loved." Nathaniel, stunned, barely managed to speak. "But she's not you. She interrupted him, her voice unwavering. "Except that she is not me, and I am not yours. I belong to myself." In that moment, RAVONA made it clear that her autonomy was sacred, that she was not a prize to be claimed, nor a part of Nathaniel's conquest. She continued, her words heavy with finality, "And the moment we've made shall be our last." With that, everything between them, every illusion, every hope of a future together, came crashing down, leaving only the bitter reality of their paths diverging. Nathaniel stood in the silence of the battlefield, the weight of RAVONA's words sinking deep into his chest. He had always believed that love was something to be fought for, something to conquer. But now, in the aftermath of her rejection, he was left with an undeniable truth. Love was never truly a choice for him. His heart, once full of hope, now lay shattered by her gaze. The very gaze that once sparked passion, now an impenetrable wall. RAVONA had chosen herself, and in that choice, she had left him with no path to follow but one of isolation. Never love, he thought, his voice quiet in the depths of his mind, as if it were a choice. But if this was the path fate had carved for him, then he would walk it, resolute, If the choice was to be his, to either let his heart remain pierced by her rejection or to harden it against her, then he would choose conquest, power, legacy, his empire. In the end, the heart that once beat for her would beat instead for his own ambition. For Nathaniel Richards, the price of love was too high. Conquest would be his only pursuit now. Nathaniel's army was a chaotic force, unwashed, untrained, savage, and cruel, but it was also relentless. The faces that made up his army were as broken as the world they fought to control. Yet, there was one undeniable truth that echoed throughout time. When given the power, slaves would become slavers. The very people who had been oppressed now held the power to oppress in turn. RAVONA had been wrong about him. She had thought that his heart, his desire for love and connection, would guide him. But Nathaniel's mind, his intellect, was his greatest tool. The weapons of war, once believed to be magical relics of ancient lore, were now nothing more than advanced technology that he had spent years learning to repair. What had once been a childhood obsession with understanding machines had now become the key to his power. But as time wore on, complexity began to feel burdensome. His ambition, his drive for victory, demanded simplicity, and so he gave his followers a simple choice: join him or die. Many chose death, as they had no desire to follow a tyrant, but others, hungry for survival, chose to serve. The taste of victory, though, was something Nathaniel had never truly savored before. For all the years of failure, all the setbacks, all the losses, victory was intoxicating. And in this moment, it felt nothing like the heresy he had once feared. It felt like power. The word conquer had consumed Nathaniel for countless nights. It wasn't about pillaging or raiding. It was about ownership, control, to truly possess something, to shape it according to his will. And in that realization, something clicked within him. He understood for the first time why his heart had always felt so restless. He had never known control, not over his life, his destiny, or even his emotions. But now, that was all different. Control was no longer an abstract concept or a distant dream. It was his, in his grasp, more real than anything he had ever held. And with that realization came a deeper truth. He would never let it go. Not now, not ever. For in control, he had found his purpose. In control, he had found his power, and nothing would take that from him. Nathaniel stood before the machine, an ancient relic from a time long past. Yet, despite its age, he recognized it from the stories of the man who had trained him, his mentor, Kang. This was no ordinary machine. It was a neurokinetic armory, a device through which Kang had first forged his armor, a vital piece of his timeship. The thought of it filled Nathaniel with reverence. But this time, it wasn't Kang who stood before it. This time, it was Nathaniel. And for the first time in his life, he felt it, true ownership. The machine, the power it represented, and the future he was shaping were his alone. The legacy that once felt like a heavy mantle now felt like his birthright. As the troops rallied around him, their voices rose in unison, chanting his name, Kang, Kang, Kang. In that moment, Nathaniel was no longer a shadow of his mentor. He was his own master. He belonged to himself, and the power he sought was now firmly in his grasp. Nathaniel's 100-year conquest had officially begun. What once seemed like an impossible dream, a far-off goal lost in the mists of time, was now within his grasp. The 40th century, once distant and untouchable, was ready to fall before him. But Nathaniel wasn't a man known for patience. The power he had worked so long to secure was now at his fingertips, and with his timeship reforged, the entire fabric of reality was his to command. In this moment, Nathaniel was faced with a choice. He could sit back, surrounded by the ghosts of lost loves, and ponder his past. He could reflect on the lessons learned, the mistakes made, and perhaps find some measure of peace in the ruins of what was. Or he could indulge in his power, unleashing his glory across space and time. To Nathaniel, this might have been a moral quandary, an internal struggle to decide what to do with the weight of all his achievements. But to Kang, the Conqueror, there was no hesitation. The choice was clear: power, domination, and control. Those were the only true objectives. The rest, as always, would fall in line. Nathaniel Kang's conquest knew no limits. He ground the kings of the past to dust, and none felt the weight of his wrath more than Arthur. The once proud hero, whose destiny seemed unshakable, was revealed for what he truly was: a child, helpless in the face of time's indifference. His cries, once those of a legend, were now the whimpers of a man who believed destiny could never be defied. The Cosmosian monarchs, hidden away in their quantum dimension, thought themselves untouchable. But Kang was a force beyond their comprehension. He shattered their safety, turning their endless cities into factories for his war machine, time-spanning and unstoppable. But even at the end of time, as Kang faced a man who claimed to be Kang himself, there was no satisfaction. This man was nothing but a reflection of Nathaniel's own weakness, a frail, sickly old man, kept alive only by alien magic. There was no challenge here, no glory to be found. In the endless stretch of time and space, Kang found the same refrain repeating itself: no true challenge, only conquest. And yet, in all his victories, the one thing that eluded him remained the only thing he truly sought: glory. After 99 years of conquest, I returned to the end of my beginning, a time and place where my name echoed in the hearts of every living soul, where my visage was no longer just a face, but a symbol of godhood. It was here, in the shadow of my triumphs, that I returned to finish what I had started. For a century, my horde had swept across every corner of this desolate world. We had taken it all, save for one small realm that stubbornly resisted my rule, one final holdout to my planetary domination. I came to do what the great Alexander had failed to achieve, to claim the last free domain of Earth, in the hopes that in doing so, I would finally feel something, anything. But as I stood in the shadow of that great castle, ready to crush the last defiant kingdom, I was reminded, yet again, that it was Kang who was the fool. From the depths of the castle, a voice echoed, sharp and regal: "Bow, mad conqueror, for you address the last free ruler on Earth. Bow before Princess RAVONA of the Final Kingdom." And in that moment, I realized my conquest, my empire, had never been enough. For RAVONA was still here, and her name still held dominion over my heart. It was her, again. A century had passed, yet there she was, standing before me. RAVONA, the woman I had lost, and yet somehow found once more. I couldn't believe it. I stared at her, trying to make sense of it. It's been a century. You should be dead," I said, my voice betraying the shock I felt. Her reply was sharp, defiant. "Not yet, tyrant." She was different now, a different face, but those same eyes. Eyes I had once known so well, eyes that still held the weight of everything I had tried to conquer. "You speak as if you do not know me, RAVONA." And then she spoke the truth I was too blind to see. Because I do not. The same soul, but a stranger to me now. Behind me, my army stirred, eager to follow my command. One soldier called out, "My liege Kang, shall we open fire with the Nega batteries?" I didn't answer right away. My gaze stayed fixed on RAVONA. This was the moment that defined me, the moment that had brought me here. "No, begone, Baltag," I ordered, dismissing the call to attack. It was her, the one I'd lost, and now, somehow, the one I'd found. And in that moment, I knew this was never about conquest. It had always been about her. I knew this story all too well. Kang had told it many times, usually when he was far too drunk to remember the details. It was the tale of the woman who hated him, a woman who died at a traitor's hand before he could ever win her love, a tragedy that shaped everything he became. And now, I was here, molded to fix his mistakes, to rewrite the ending he had failed to write. For the first time since the dawn of time, I did as I was told. I built the OmniViewer, a device capable of seeing all of time. Through its lenses, I could unravel the puzzle of RAVONA. I had to. This was my purpose, my reason for existing. The rabble, my soldiers, they wanted more conquest. They didn't care about the cosmic significance of Kang's paradox. They couldn't see what I saw, what he had failed to understand. I searched through time, through centuries, through lives. I saw a girl in ancient Egypt, looking at me with eyes of fire. Then a warrior woman in the rubble, looking at me with eyes of ice. They were the same eyes, the same soul. Again and again, across the expanse of time, I saw those eyes, fleeting and ever-changing. They were the only thing in all of time and space that I desired. And so, I resolved to win her love, not through conquest, but through its opposite. I would free her kingdom from my grip, despite the objections of my generals. It wasn't easy. Power, once grasped, is never easily relinquished, but I did it. And as I let go, the ice that had surrounded her heart began to thaw. In this act of mercy, I exposed the traitor Baltag, bringing him into the open before he could strike. I stood among heroes, not as their conqueror, but as their equal. I became a hero in my own right, and RAVONA began to see me for who I truly was. I prepared to end Baltag, just as Kang had failed to do before me. But in that moment, I stayed my hand. I was no longer the man driven by ambition and conquest. I had fallen in love, and it was not love that conquered me. It was mercy, and in that mercy, she grew to love me in return. In the end, I won. And time laughs. I recognize those words, spoken before, in another time. As RAVONA lay dying in my arms, she whispered, "Perhaps this is just as well, my lord. Perhaps it was never meant to be." I've heard them before, in the echo of all my failures. But before I could respond, another version of Kang appeared, another variant of myself. "Come, child," he said. "A villain could never win love, and a hero, it seemed, could not save her life." The truth struck me like a cold blade. The cage was Kang. In my quest to escape it, I had only forged its bars myself. I had become the very thing I sought to avoid, trapped in my own destiny, unable to escape the relentless loop I had created. Nathaniel's voice grew steady, but his words were heavy with purpose. "And so it was then," he said, "that I devised a new escape, my love. One the old man could never have accomplished. One that I now know I already will." He paused, as if reflecting on a century of painful memories. "He spent the next 50 years mourning you, trying to bring you, his RAVONA, back. But I have seen your face in the distant past, and I have seen your face only 100 years ago. And now, here, I see you again." He recalled Kang's words, words that had haunted him for so long. "Never love. It is the only way you will be conquered." Nathaniel smirked bitterly at the irony. "I have already seen the ripples in the waters of time," he continued, his voice now filled with revelation. "But I remained so ignorant of the impact they caused. But I know now, for what else could it be? I am the impact." His gaze hardened, determination flooding his heart. "And I shall shatter time for you. Awake, RAVONA. Awake 1,000 times, and be saved by my final conquest." Time itself had become his playground, his battlefield. But now, with RAVONA at its center, Nathaniel was ready to rewrite it all, no matter the cost.